Can I please have everyone rise for the recitation of the Proverbs? Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
This is a letter given to the difficult duty of writing to a mother who lost her son shortly after the end of World War I. My dear Mrs. Hogan, if I could talk to you, I could tell you so much better about your son's last sickness and all the little things that mean so much to a mother far away from her boy. Your son was brought to this hospital on the 13th of November, very sick with what they call influenza. This soon developed into pneumonia. He was brave and cheerful though, and made a good fight with the disease. Several days later, he seemed much better and seemed to enjoy some fruit that I brought him. He did not want you to worry about him being sick, but I told him I thought we ought to let you know, and he said all right. He became very weak towards the last of his sickness and slept all the time. One day while I was visiting some of the other patients, he woke up, and seeing me with my hat on, he asked the orderly if I was his sister come to see him. He was always good and patient, and the nurses loved him. Everything was done to make him feel comfortable, and I think he suffered very little, if anything. He laughed and talked to the people around him as long as he was able. They wanted to move him to another bed after he became real sick and moved to the new bed up close to his, but he shook his head that he didn't want to move. The orderly, a fine fellow, urged him. Come on, Hogan, he said. Move to this new bed. It's lots better than the one you're in. But Hogan shook his head still. No, he said. No, I'll stay where I am. If that bed is better than mine, you'd have had it a long time ago. The last time I saw him, I carried him a cup of hot soup, but he was too weak to do anything but taste it and went back to sleep. The chaplain saw him several times and had just left him when he breathed his last on November 25th at 2:30 in the afternoon. He was laid to rest in the little cemetery of Commercy and sleeps under a simple white wooden cross among his comrades who, like him, have died for their country. His grave number is 22, plot 1. His aluminum identification tag is on the cross, and a similar one is around his neck, both bearing his serial number 2793346. The plot of his grave in the cemetery where your son is buried was given to the Army for our boys and the people of Commercy who will always tend it with loving hands and keep it fresh and clean. I enclose here a few leaves from the grass that grows near in a pretty meadow. A big hill overshadows the place, and the sun was setting behind it just as the chaplain said the last prayer over your boy. He prayed that the people at home might have great great strength now for the battle that is before them, and we do ask that from you now. The country will always honor your boy because he gave his life for it, and it will also love and honor you for the gift of your boy. But be assured that the sacrifice is not in vain, and the world is better today for it. From the whole hospital force, accept deepest sympathy, and from myself, tenderest love in your hour of sorrow. Sincerely, Maud B. Fisher.
At this time, I would just like to welcome everyone for coming here today. Thank you to all the students for coming here. It means a lot, and I'm sure you'll learn something today. I'd also like to thank all the central office leaders for coming and sharing today with us. To all the various speakers and people who made this day possible, I thank you so much. And lastly, I'd like to thank the veterans who are with us for your service in protecting and defending our rights and freedoms as Americans. So if you please join me. Since 1947, the Voice of Democracy has been a veteran of Foreign Wars Premier Scholarship Program. Each year, almost 40,000 high school students compete for more than $2 million in scholarships and incentives. Students compete by writing and recording an audio essay on an annual patriotic theme. This year's theme was My Vision for America. The essays are judged on their originality, content, and delivery. This year, Spotswood's winner was Miss Julia Sheffer, and if she would now come up and read her essay.
Thank you, Ben. My vision for America. As an American citizen,
citizen, it is my duty to support the United States, but it is also my desire to continuously better my country for every American citizen. Lately in the United States, there has been a dramatic increase of shootings and other various national tragedies. The common factor in most of these tragic instances is mental illness. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the nation's largest mental health organization, about 1 in 4 adults, or 61.3 million Americans, and approximately 20% of youth ages 13 to 18 experience severe mental disorders in a given year. Since the start of the war in Afghanistan, more than 100,000 combat veterans have sought help for mental illness. People who struggle with mental illness will tell you that they are not free. They are a prisoner in their own mind, and their disease is controlling their life. My vision for America is for freedom for all Americans and mental health reform. Last winter, many Americans saw the movie American Sniper, featuring Bradley Cooper as U.S. Navy SEAL Chris Kyle. After Chris served 4 years as a sniper in the Iraqi war, he felt as if he were haunted by all of the lives he could not save. So a psychiatrist from Veterans Affairs encouraged him to help wounded veterans, hoping this would simultaneously help Chris. While in the process of helping Eddie Ray Ralph, a fellow veteran, Chris was shot and killed. Ralph's psychiatrist, Mitchell Dunn, testified that he interviewed Ralph at length and found that he experienced killer delusions since the war. What troubles me the most is that most critics condemn the number of deaths Chris was responsible for while protecting the United States, but not the innocent life Eddie Ray Roth is responsible for ending. There have been many violent instances like this one from other war veterans. Virginia records show that mental health cases among war veterans, including post-traumatic stress syndrome, commonly known as PTSD, drug and alcohol dependency, and depression grew by 58% from 2006 to 2007. Almost 1/2 of those cases were related to PTSD. PTSD does not cause violence, but there is a link between PTSD and post-war homicide. Serving in the war exposes Americans to serious moral challenges which can often make them less stable and more violent than they were originally. I believe that if the United States focuses resources towards improving mental health and making it easier for veterans and other Americans to get help, these statistics and violent occurrences would decrease. Many Americans are familiar with the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Newtown, Connecticut that took place the morning of December 14, 2012. According to U.S. News, shooter Adam Lanza had a history of obsessive-compulsive disorder and a fascination with mass shootings, particularly the shooting in Columbine, Colorado in 1999. Adam saw a mental health specialist for his mental disorders but refused to take medication to manage his symptoms. None of the mental health professionals he saw predicted he was violent. Similarly, the murderers of the Columbine shooting in 1999, the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007, and the Fort Hood shooting in 2014 are all examples of innocent victims losing their lives from violent persons with mental illness. Public shootings like Newtown and Columbine only account for 1 in 6 mass killings in the United States. I believe that these occurrences are dangerously high and need to be lowered as soon as possible. My passion for mental illness reform derives from my sister Amanda, who for the longest time fell victim to her mental illnesses. Amanda struggles with obsessive-compulsive disorder, also known as OCD, bipolar disorder, and depression, which all contributed to her struggle with drug addiction. She was not the same sister that I grew up with. Her combination of mental illness and addiction was consuming her life, and she was unrecognizable. My parents struggled to find a good rehabilitation program for her to receive help that was affordable. In the future, I would like to see persons suffering with mental illness have easier access to mental health care where they can receive help to get their lives back. My vision for America is freedom for all Americans. Americans suffering with mental illness become consumed by their disease to the point that they become unrecognizable and act as if they are a completely different person. They become prisoners to their disease. Most are unable to function normally and are often labeled as crazy or insane. My hope for America is that people start to understand why people suffering from mental illness act the way they do. I hope to see Americans more understanding, accepting, and supporting of those with mental illness. I dream that Americans unite and fight for mental freedom and mental health reform together. Thank you.
Mr. Earl P. Weekly Jr. is a veteran of the Vietnam War. Known as to many as Buddy, Mr. Weekly graduated from Harrisonburg High School in 1965. Less than 2 years later, he was drafted into the United States Army to serve in South Vietnam. From 1967 to 1968, Mr. Weekly served with the ACO 4th Battalion, 12th Infantry, and 199th Light Infantry Brigade. During the course of his service, he was awarded the National Defense Service Medal, the Vietnamese Campaign Medal with 2 overseas bars, the Combat Infantryman's Badge, and the Purple Heart. For the past 25 years, Buddy has owned and operated Weekly's Locksmith Shop in downtown Harrisonburg. Since 1985, Mr. Weekly has been an active member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars at the MAH00027 VFW post in Bridgewater. He has served in the leadership chairs throughout the years in both his post and his district. He has also served as both post and state chairman for the Voice of Democracy program. In 2007, Mr. Weekly received the Community Builders Award from the Eureka Lodge 195. In 2011, he received the Shenandoah Valley Small Business Veteran Award for his dedication to area veterans. In 2014, Mr. Weekly was elected as the state commander of the VFW for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. Buddy shares his life with his wife Debbie, who is a member of the Ladies Auxiliary of the Bridgewater Post. She too is very active in helping our veterans. She has held the position of VFW Assistant Secretary of the Department of Virginia of the Ladies Auxiliary for many years, and has served as District President and District Treasurer. Buddy and Debbie reside in Dayton and have 4 children and 2 grandchildren. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Buddy Weekly to Spotswood High School.
Thank you for the introduction. The military, you're expected to always be ready for whatever comes upon you. I spent 2 years in the military. I must not have learned my lesson very well. When Bo called and asked me to come and speak, I thought I was speaking to a few people eating breakfast. And that's serious. I mean, I'm not kidding. That's what I thought. I said, well, that won't be bad. Yeah, I've got a couple lines written here on a piece of paper. Talk to 5 or 6 people. I can talk to 5 or 6 people for 5 or 6 hours. But a group this big, I might be able to talk to a group this big for 3 or 4 minutes. But it is good to be here, so if I sound like I'm stumbling a little bit, I probably will be. But I'll do the best I can. The Veterans of Foreign Wars. Most of you know who we are. A lot of you don't know what we do. We don't sit around bars, drink beer, and tell war stories. But not that someone don't do that, don't get me wrong. But to straighten out the misconception, we have over 200 VFW posts in the organization, and only 25 of them even have an ABC license. So we don't work on, that's not what we do. What we do is community work and veterans work. Some of the programs, the Voice of Democracy that was read here today was my favorite program, as she said, and it's one of our biggest programs. The Teacher of the Year program we have. That's a big program. It's only been around for a few years, but I'd like to let everybody know here. You might know because you're in this county, in this district. But we have the National Elementary School Teacher of the Year this year for the state of Virginia. That's saying a lot. Ann Camora from the small Ottomine school up here in the western part of the county, she was chosen as the best teacher at the elementary level for everybody that teaches that's involved with the VFW. She's not here, but I'd like everybody to give her a hand anyway. How many veterans are in here? Well, thank you. Thank you for your service to our country as well. The support, let me back up a little bit. One of the biggest things that we can do, that really help our veterans is make sure we stay in touch with them when they're overseas. Letters from home mean so much. They mean so much for the morale of the troops. Gives them an opportunity to know what's going on at home, and also lets them know that we're thinking about them and caring about them. So if you know a veteran somewhere that's overseas, sometimes they're overserviced as well, but they're overseas, well, you know, send them a letter. Let them know that you appreciate what we're doing. Only a small number of our citizens are in the military, but the majority of the people in this country support our veterans. I'm getting off my track here, so that's why I'll take a few minutes. We continue as an organization supporting our schools, our teachers, our youth programs. Like I say, as a matter of fact, the teacher leaders here was Ann Camora from Alabama Elementary School. And she received a check for $1,000 and so did the school. How do we get our message of what we do to organizations? We need to let people know what we do so that we can entice people to come to our organization to do the projects that we do. How do we do that? We do that through the radio, face-to-face, other organizations. So we need to get our word out for what our veterans do. What we do in the communities will help increase the members that we get to our organization, which in turn will help to keep our organization viable and give us the opportunity to do the kind of things we do. Like I said, I have to apologize. I didn't have a whole lot of other things written down to speak to you about. I would, if anyone's asking questions to ask me about our organization or what we do, I'd be more than willing to answer them. But basically, that's what I had planned on saying to a handful of people. There's a lot more than a handful of people here than that. But I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank everybody for what they do for our organization, all the support we get, all the letters that we send overseas, all the letters that we received overseas. If anybody wants to ask me any questions, students or whatever, about our organization, I think I can answer those. As far as what I had prepared, that's it. Now, if you want me to keep on talking about something else, I'll be glad to do it. Any questions from any students or anybody? We have one in the back there. Is that?
I don't know if I can yell. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
You must sit in the back of the class.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My dad's a veteran of the Iraq War. Can Iraq veterans join the Veterans of Foreign Wars?
They sure can. If you served anywhere in a combat zone, then you're eligible for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. As long as you served in a combat zone. If it doesn't mean that you had to actually step foot on the ground. Air Force, airplane pilots, who gave us support while we were overseas. Obviously, it's also a very dangerous thing to do when you're flying airplanes very low, over top of enemy territory, but he sure can. If he was overseas during time of war, he is eligible for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Love to have him sign up. Like I say, our organization is like all the others. A lot of our old members are dying, and we're having a hard time recruiting younger members. For whatever reason, I don't know. But if you know someone who is eligible, we'd love to have him, and we do a lot of good things. Like I say, I think if you ask the people that win awards from us at the local schools and that kind of stuff, they'll tell you what we do and why we do it, and we look forward to it. And we look forward to having more of you folks call us and to talk to your organization. We served in the military. We're here to serve you as well as military veterans. And we need to keep getting our message out to the young people of what we do and what we stand for, and hopefully that you'll be an advocate for veterans and be proud of who you are and be proud of what this country has done for you and what the veterans has done to make sure that you have the opportunity to do what you do in this country. Without us, it probably wouldn't happen. Those are questions out here, somebody. I know you students have something you want to know about veterans. I didn't tell you everything that I probably should have. Some of the things I can't, not because they're classified, but my wife told me I could. Any of the older veterans want to say something? I know, I see you sitting out here. Here's a young lady, okay. Hi there.
What does the VFW do for the veterans who are suffering from mental health disorders?
You all know that answer.
Oh, well, I want you to answer.
You know who she is, don't you? That's my daughter. That's one of the two. One of the three children that the wife and I had. But, Stacy, why don't you answer that question?
You're more qualified to answer the question.
Do what?
I said you're more qualified to answer the question than I am.
All right, ask me again.
What does the VFW organization do for veterans who are suffering from mental health disorders?
Okay, PTSD is one of them, obviously. We do a lot, but not enough. We'll start out that way. Post-traumatic stress disorder is probably one of the most prevalent of the problems we have now with veterans. It's hard to diagnose. Everyone that's served in combat usually has a touch of it somewhere. It's just a matter of what touches them off to go to the extreme. That's really hard to say. We have really stepped up quite a bit. Our doctors that are trained to try to help these people that are sick and are come down with that particular problem. I don't know if there's an answer to it, Stacy. I'd like to say they're not crazy. They do crazy things sometimes. But post-traumatic stress disorder is a very, very complicated issue to handle. And it's a very sad one to have to look at these servicemen in the hospitals. We're working on it. Unfortunately, we're getting a lot more money now to address that issue. Most of the veterans that have it can handle it, but a lot of them can't. And I think it reflects by the number of, for example, is that the divorce rate for veterans is very high. Guess we could blame it on PTSD, some of it, obviously. But it might be a good excuse when we're leaving, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that does that has PTSD. But it is very, very difficult to deal with. But we're doing the best we can with the soldiers that we have, and with the money that we get through the VA, which, by the way, gets usually decreased every year. We have more veterans that need the health care, but we have less money to be able to get it done. Anybody else? Those are questions out here. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any stories you're willing to share?
Any stories I'm willing to share? War stories or any stories? Okay. Some of the things I've done, both of them could be war stories. Just a little bit on what people don't realize, I guess, unless you're in the service. You know, I was drafted at the age of 19 and went to the bus station up on East Mark Street when you should have it up there. Went down, had my physical, and Roanoke told me to bring my bag and enough to spend the night overnight. And so I got on the bus and went to Roanoke to get my physical. And the day after that, I was sent in Fort Bragg. I never made it back home. I went right direct to basic training. And that was kind of a shock to me, obviously. But so went there, spent my 8 weeks in basic training, shipped right on down to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Took my AIT, advanced individual training, and then came home, spent 4 days in Harrisonburg, and flew to Vietnam. Didn't have a whole lot of time in between the time as my mom said, took you, and the time I had before I went overseas. And my bio says a lot more than that. I was attached to a machine gun crew and ended up being a machine gunner, not that I wanted to be actually, but started out as an ammo bearer, moved up to assistant gunner, and when both of those were killed in the same ambush that I was wounded in, I was the gunner at that time. So it's the military. I mean, it's not hard for me to talk about it, but I think it's hard for people to understand what all the veterans in here you're told to do, and you ask no questions. You just do what you're told to do because that's what you're expected to do for your country, and that's what the veteran does. What he's asked to do. Those are more questions out there. I know y'all don't want to go back to class. Anybody, are there any folks here looking to go into the military? Now, I know you got a couple of years to think about it, but it's very rewarding, and it's a very respected career if you decide to stay into it, or stay with it, not into it, stay with it. English wasn't the best subject either, but yeah, it's something that we need to remember and think of every day. What you're doing over there, letters from home, packages overseas, which we do. I know we do with the schools, and send them every year. We send hundreds of them. But we need your support. Do what you can. Get somebody to get a list of soldiers overseas. Send them letters. Give them some encouragement. Tell them to think about it. We want them back home as soon as their job is over. But we do think about them. We do love them all. And what they do there keeps the majority of people here at home. And we're proud of every one of them. It's not time for lunch yet, so people want, okay, yes, sir.
You were drafted into Vietnam, and since Vietnam, we moved to an all-volunteer military. Since then, we're now been at war for 14 years, putting overbearing stress on our nation's volunteers. What is the VFW, your personal opinion on returning to mandatory service?
I think I don't know that we have organization doesn't have really a no or yay answer to that. Obviously, we don't have control of that, but we do have a lot to do with how our soldiers are treated. I mean, we're a very influential organization, and we do have say-so on the Hill. But we really don't make that decision. But when that decision is made by our commander-in-chief, the president, who is our commander-in-chief of the military, and it also controls us. So we don't really have a lot of leeway on what we can say and what we do, what we have. But whatever veterans are asked to do, our veterans organization are behind. We take the good with the bad and step on it up and keep on getting it. And when we're needed, we're called, and we're prepared to do it. And the biggest hardship is on the family. The soldiers themselves, they have a job to do. It's like going to work and working 8 hours a day. It's just a little more demanding and a little more dangerous. But when we go to the military, we have a good chance of knowing that we're going to be somewhere with all that's going on now in the world. They're going to be somewhere overseas. They're going to be in a zone where it's not too safe. And like I said, the wounds today are so much more devastating than they were when I was in the service. But nonetheless, whether it be a gunshot wound in the hand like I had, or losing both legs, like some of those poor veterans have, but we all still do the same thing. We ask to go, we're ready to go, and we just need everybody's support at home. Hopefully we'll all get back. Thank the veteran tomorrow. Thank the veteran today. Thank the veteran day after tomorrow. You see a baseball cap, you see something that lets you know that he's a military man or a woman. We do have a lot of women in the military, and they are some of them the toughest veterans, I'm telling you. And so, you know, to see a veteran, thank you. Anything you do for them, do it. Because anything that this country needs to be done, we'll do it. I appreciate being here and being able to speak to you folks. I just apologize again for, I thought we'd have breakfast, cup of coffee, speak to 8 people, but this is great. I just didn't have it, have a script anyway. If I was talking about having a script, my wife looks at it and says, "You sure you want to say that?" I said, "Well, I don't know." She said, "How about this?" I said, "All right, choose your wins the argument anyway." But thanks again for having me. If you want to go play some basketball, I'll go out and shoot a few hoops with you. But maybe the principals let you stay in here and shoot the breeze with each other for a half an hour without doubt. So thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
This is a letter written by Lieutenant Shute to his newborn daughter during World War II. My dear daughter, Anna Mary, someday I shall be able to tell you the conditions under which I write this letter to you. You arrived in this world while I was still several thousand miles from your mother's side. There were many anxious moments then and since. This message comes to you from somewhere in England. I pray to God it will be given to you on or about your 10th birthday. I hope also to be present when this is done. It shall be held in trust by your mother or someone equally concerned until that time. Also, I pray that the efforts of your daddy and his buddies will not be in vain, that you will always be permitted to enjoy the great freedoms for which this war is being fought. If it is not pleasant, but knowing that our efforts are to be for the good of our children makes it worth the hardships. With this letter, you will find a war bond of $2,500 maturity value, and a list of names. A list of names to you, honey, buddies to me. Men of my company who adopted you as their sweetheart when you came into this world. It is these men who bought you the bond as a remembrance of when they were soldiers with your daddy. The money values are in the current English denominations. I shall ask your mother to obtain the bond with the money sent her and keep it with this letter, envelope, and the names until such time as she sees fit to give it to you, Anna Mary. You will never know the joy I knew when I received word that you had arrived. Suddenly the sun shone through the fog. The mud path seemed paved with gold. The boys thought I had gone stir crazy or maybe slap happy. I guess I was a little daft. I want you to know that God gave to you for a mother the finest woman of this creation. I pray that you will grow to be as fine a person as she is. I ask that you follow her guidance and her teachings. I know how much you mean to her at the time I write this letter. Such a love can never be forgotten. It is time that I close the short message to you. Should God decree that you never know your father, I want you to have this sample of my handwriting. I want you to know and understand that with the help of God, He will spend His life trying to make you and your precious mother happy and to provide for your needs and wants. I place you now in the hands of God. May He care for you and love you. May He see fit that we shall see one another very soon and keep us together into eternity, ever as He gave us His Son to heal our salvation. Your loving dad, Walter Shute. Lieutenant Walter Shute did make it home alive and was able to read his letter to Anna Marie on her 10th birthday.
At this time, I would now ask everyone to stand for the playing of taps.
Thank you all very much for coming today. Our veterans, we are very honored to have you in our school today. Please feel free to come anytime to share your stories so our students can understand what true sacrifice means, willing to give up everything you have for those you will never meet. And we are greatly honored by your presence today. And what we'll do, Ms. Schoenhart, our yearbook director, will be meeting with all the veterans and their family members in the school today. We'll take a picture with you all out in the large commons. At this time, what we'll do is we'll have our veterans going out. We'll let them dismiss first to a standing ovation for a very grateful school. Students, I want to thank you for a very respectful reception you gave our veterans today during our ceremony. That's what it means to be a trailblazer, honoring those who work hard to serve for others. I appreciate that. Now we're going to dismiss, but listen up before you do that so we're not walking on top of each other. I will let that side to go out the side door.